You hear the name Sicily and think vacation, beaches, wine, ruins for tourists, but roll back 2,500 years, and that island was a killing ground where two empires clashed for control of the Mediterranean. Carthage from North Africa, Greeks from Syracuse and across the sea, both wanted the trade routes, both needed the grain, and in 480 BC, on a coastal plain outside a city called Himera, they met to settle it. Carthaginians brought tens of thousands. Greeks brought less. One side walked away. The other got buried in mass graves that archaeologists are still digging up today. How did 20,000 Greeks annihilate a force 2 or 3 times their size? How did they coordinate a two-front trap so perfect that ancient writers claimed not one Carthaginian soldier made it home? What was the trick? What were the casualties? And why did this battle vanish from history while Marathon and Thermopylae became legend? By 483 BC, Sicily was carved into zones. Greeks controlled the east and south with Syracuse as the power center. Carthaginians held the west with trading posts at Panormus, Motia, and Saguntum. Native Sicilians, Sicels, Sicons, and Elymians occupied the interior and picked sides. Himera sat on the northern coast, a Greek colony founded around 648 BC by settlers from Zankel. Strategic position. Controlled sea lanes running east to west, dominated the land route cutting south across the island. Whoever held Himera controlled the flow of ships and troops. In 483, Theron, tyrant of Acragas, expelled Tyrillus, the tyrant of Himera. Tyrillus had Carthaginian ties. His son-in-law was Anaxylus of Rhegion. Both sent children as hostages to Carthage to guarantee loyalty. When Theron kicked Tyrillus out, the exiled ruler begged Carthage for help. Hamilcar, Suffy of Carthage, agreed, not just because of friendship. Carthage watched Timoleon of Syracuse grow stronger. Gelon had seized power in 485, married Theron's daughter, built alliances, expanded territory. A united Greek Sicily meant death for Carthaginian interests. Hamilcar mobilized. Ancient sources claim 300,000 men. Herodotus said it. Diodorus Siculus repeated it centuries later. Modern historians call it propaganda. Realistic estimates sit around 50 to 60,000 troops. Maybe less. The force was multinational. Carthaginians commanded. Libyans provided heavy infantry. Iberians brought swordsmen and cavalry. Sardinians, Corsicans, Gauls, and Ligurians filled the ranks. The army assembled in North Africa in 480 BC. 200 warships escorted thousands of transport vessels. Hamilcar sailed for Sicily. The crossing went bad. Storms hit the fleet in the Libyan Sea. Transports carrying horses and chariots sank. The Carthaginians lost their cavalry before landing. That detail mattered later. The fleet limped into Panormus, modern Palermo. Hamilcar gave his men 3 days to rest and repair ships. Then he marched east, along the northern coast. The fleet sailed alongside. Destination, Himera. If you value documented Mediterranean warfare and tactical history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, published October 2022, analyzing DNA and isotopic data from mass graves excavated between 2007 and 2011. Confirming mercenary involvement and battle casualties. And from Archaeology Magazine's November 2011, feature detailing Stefano Vassallo's excavations, which uncovered over 10,000 burials, including mass graves with violent trauma, arrowheads, and spear blades embedded in bone. Back to the information. Hamilcar reached Himera and built 2 camps. The main camp sat west of the city, fortified with ditches and wooden palisades. The naval camp hugged the coast to the north. Most ships were beached there, protected by trenches. The Carthaginian army outnumbered the defenders. Theron of Acragas commanded Himera's garrison, maybe a few thousand men. The Carthaginians attacked. The Greeks sallied out to fight. The battle went badly. Hamilcar crushed them. Heavy losses. The survivors retreated behind Himera's walls. Theron bricked up the west gates. Morale collapsed. Carthaginian foragers ranged across the countryside, burning farms and stealing supplies. Theron sent urgent messages to Gelon. Syracuse was 2 days' march away. Gelon had already mobilized. He brought 50,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry, according to Diodorus. Probably exaggerated. Realistic number closer to 20,000 total, with maybe 3,000 to 5,000 cavalry. But cavalry was the key. Sicilian Greeks bred the best horses in the Mediterranean. Gelon's mounted force was elite, trained, disciplined, fast. Gelon arrived and built his own camp across the river from Himera. Fortified with ditches and palisades, his cavalry immediately went to work. They swept the countryside and captured thousands of Carthaginian looters who had strayed too far from their camps. The foragers had no cavalry to protect them. Hamilcar's horses were at the bottom of the sea. Galan interrogated the prisoners, got intelligence on Carthaginian positions and plans. Morale in Himera improved. The bricked-up gates were cleared. The Greeks prepared to attack, but Gelon needed an edge. The Carthaginian army still outnumbered him. A straight fight meant grinding casualties. He needed deception. He needed surprise. He got it from a captured messenger. Golan's cavalry intercepted a courier riding from Selinus. The letter was for Hamilcar. Selinus was a Greek city allied with Carthage. The message said they would send cavalry reinforcements on a specific date. The same day, Hamilcar planned to conduct a major sacrifice to Poseidon at the naval camp, or Baal, depending on the source. Details matched. Gelon saw the opening. He devised a plan: send his own cavalry disguised as the Selinuntian reinforcements, get inside the naval camp without a fight, kill Hamilcar, burn the ships, signal the main army to attack. Hit the Carthaginians from two directions while they were confused. Two-front trap. Perfect ambush. The date arrived. Autumn 480 BC. September or October, based on seasonal markers. Dawn broke cold. Gelon arrayed his infantry in front of the Carthaginian land camp west of Himera. Full battle formation. Hoplites in the center. Bronze armor. 8-foot spears. Overlapping shields. Mercenary peltists on the flanks. Lighter armor. Javelins. Slingers and archers in support. Cecil and Sicon auxiliaries filled gaps. The Carthaginian commanders saw the Greek army forming and led their troops out. The armies faced each other. But the real action was happening at the naval camp. Gelon's cavalry, maybe 2,000 men, rode around Himera from the south and east. They approached the naval camp from the direction of Selinus, sunrise timing. Guards expected allied cavalry. The horsemen wore no Greek identifiers. They carried spears and shields, looked like reinforcements. The sentries opened the gates, let them in. The cavalry galloped through the camp, headed straight for the beach where Hamilcar conducted his ritual. Diodorus said Hamilcar was sacrificing to Poseidon. Herodotus said Baal. The god didn't matter. Hamilcar stood near a large fire, surrounded by priests and officers. The Greek cavalry charged, cut down the guards, killed Hamilcar in the middle of the ceremony. Blood on the altar. Herodotus gave a different version, said Hamilcar threw himself into the sacrificial fire when he saw the battle was lost. Self-immolation, honorable death. Carthaginians later built ruler cults honoring him, but Diodorus' account matches the tactical plan better. Kill the commander first, then the rest. The cavalry torched the ships. Hundreds of vessels pulled onto the beach. Dry wood, pitch, rope. Everything burned. Black smoke rose over the coast. That was the signal. Gelon saw the flames and ordered the attack. His infantry surged forward. The Carthaginian commanders in the land camp didn't know Hamilcar was dead yet. They formed their lines to meet the Greek assault. The armies collided. Hoplite phalanx against Libyan heavy infantry. Spear against spear. Shield against shield. The Carthaginians fought hard. Well-trained troops. Experienced. But confusion spread. Smoke from the naval camp. Rumors of fire. Men kept glancing north. Then word arrived. Hamilcar dead. Ships burning? The Greek cavalry had won the naval camp. Panic rippled through the Carthaginian ranks. Soldiers looked for escape routes. The Greek line pressed forward. No cavalry to counter the Greek mounted force. No commander to rally them. The Carthaginian formation started to crack. Gelon's cavalry returned from the naval camp, charged into the Carthaginian flanks and rear. Classic double envelopment. Cavalry from behind. Hoplites from the front. The Carthaginian army broke. Men threw down weapons and ran. Some fled west toward their base camp. Others scattered across the plain. The Greeks pursued. Gelon gave orders. No prisoners. The slaughter was immense. Diodorus claimed not a single Carthaginian who landed in Sicily returned home. That's propaganda. But the casualties were catastrophic. Tens of thousands dead. Archaeological evidence backs it up. Mass graves discovered in 2008 during railway construction near Himera. Stefano Vassallo led the excavations. Over 10,000 burials in the western necropolis. 16 mass graves with multiple individuals. 7 linked to the battles of 480 and 409 BC. All males, ages 18 to 50, signs of violent trauma, arrowheads, spear blades, sword cuts, 1 man buried with a metal spearhead embedded in his chest cavity. 18 horse burials found nearby, rare in Greek archaeology, matches Diodorus, account of the cavalry stratagem. Bodies were buried close to the battlefield. Western necropolis sat just outside the city wall near where the fighting happened. Heavy bodies, quick disposal. The Greeks had time to bury their dead with care after winning. The Carthaginians didn't. Genetic analysis published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in October 2022 revealed something unexpected. Researchers analyzed DNA from 69 skeletons in the mass graves. 30 individuals total from both battles. 9 from the 480 BC graves showed extreme genetic diversity. Ancestry from Central Asia, the Caucasus Mountains, Central Europe, Eastern Baltic near modern Lithuania. Strontium and oxygen isotope analysis confirmed they grew up far from Sicily. Not local, not Greek. Mercenaries, foreign fighters hired by Gelon and Theron. Ancient sources never mentioned them. Herodotus and Diodorus credited the victory to Greek citizen soldiers and allies from Syracuse, Acragas, and other Sicilian cities. The DNA told a different story. About 1/3 of the 480 BC force was foreign mercenaries. Greeks in Sicily used wealth to recruit fighters from across the Mediterranean and beyond. Iberians, Scythians, men from the edges of the known world. They came for pay, fought for Gelon, died on Sicilian soil. Got respectful but anonymous burials and mass graves. Later, Greek writers erased them. Mercenaries contradicted the citizen warrior ideal. The Homeric hero fighting for his polis. Wage earners had negative connotations: avarice, corruption. Shifting allegiance, bad for the narrative, so the historians downplayed or ignored them. The Carthaginian survivors who escaped the battlefield fled to the main camp west of Himera. Theron's forces and Gelon's reserves surrounded them. The Carthaginians had no water, no supplies, no hope. They surrendered. Gelon took thousands prisoner. Then he turned to the naval camp. Nothing left but ash and corpses. The fleet was destroyed. Only 20 escort ships remained according to some sources. 19 sank in a storm on the return voyage to Carthage. One ship survived. That ship carried the news of total disaster. Carthage panicked. The ruling council expected Gelon to invade North Africa. He didn't. He offered terms. Peace treaty. Carthage would pay 2,000 talents of silver, massive indemnity. Carthage would not interfere in Greek Sicily. Greeks would dominate the island for 70 years. Carthage signed. They had no choice. Gelon returned to Syracuse a hero, tyrant to savior. The victory secured his power and Syracuse's dominance. He built monuments, dedicated offerings at Delphi, spread the news across the Greek world. The victory at Himera became legendary. Later writers claimed it happened on the same day as Salamis or Thermopylae, September 22, 480 BC. That's myth. The timeline doesn't match, but the symbolism mattered. Greeks defeating barbarians, east and west, Persia and Carthage, both repelled in 480. The Golden Age narrative, Himera got lumped in with Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea. 5 great victories that saved Hellenism, except Himera was different. It wasn't citizen soldiers alone. It was mercenaries and trickery and a two-front ambush that caught the enemy in the worst possible position. It was Gelon's cavalry and Hamilcar's bad luck losing his horses at sea. It was wealth-buying foreign fighters and intelligence from a captured courier and ruthless pursuit that turned victory into annihilation. Theron built temples to commemorate the win. The Temple of Athena in Syracuse, still standing. Now a cathedral. The Temple of Hera in Acragas. The Temple of Olympian Zeus in Agrigento. Started after Himera, never finished. Would have been one of the largest in the Greek world. Collapsed in an earthquake. Became a quarry. But the ruins show the scale of Greek ambition after 480. They thought they owned the Mediterranean. Gelon ruled until 478, died of natural causes. His brother Hieron took power. Syracuse grew richer, built ships, expanded trade, controlled grain exports, became the wealthiest Greek city in the West. More powerful than Athens at its peak. The Carthaginians stayed quiet, licked their wounds, focused on North Africa and Iberia, built armies and fleets for the future, waited 70 years. 409 BC, they came back. Hannibal Mago led the second expedition, grandson of Hamilcar, personal revenge mission. Carthage mobilized tens of thousands again. This time they brought siege equipment, battering rams, siege towers, sappers. They sacked Selinus first, then marched on Himera. The city called Syracuse for help. Syracuse sent a small force under Diocles, but the Syracusans turned back halfway, afraid of Carthaginian ships threatening their city. Himera stood alone. The Carthaginians assaulted the walls, broke through with tunnels and fire. Iberian troops secured a breach. The garrison fought to the last. Hannibal won. He executed 3,000 Greek prisoners where his grandfather fell. Ritual sacrifice. Burned the city to the ground. Himera was never rebuilt. Survivors founded Thermi nearby. Mixed Greek and Phoenician population. The mass graves from 409 show different demographics. Genetic analysis revealed homogeneity. mostly local Sicilians, fewer mercenaries. 3/4 of the 409 force was local compared to 1/3 in 480. Syracuse didn't help. Himera fought alone and lost. The archaeological evidence matches the written accounts. 7 decades between victories and defeat, 2 battles, 2 armies, 2 different outcomes buried in the same necropolis. The two-front trap at Himera in 480 worked because of 5 factors converging. 1, Hamilcar lost his cavalry in the storm, no horsemen to scout, no mobile force to counter Galan's cavalry raids. 2, the captured messenger gave Galan perfect intelligence. Exact date, exact location, expected reinforcements. 3, geography separated the Carthaginian camps. Naval camp on the coast, land camp west of the city, 2 kilometers apart. No mutual support. 4, the deception worked. Greek cavalry disguised as allies got inside the naval camp without fighting, killed the commander, burned the ships. 5, timing synchronized, naval camp assault at dawn. Main attack when the signal fires went up, 2-front pressure, confusion in Carthaginian ranks, no time to adapt, no commander to rally, total collapse. The trap wasn't improvised, it was planned, executed with precision. Cavalry to naval camp, infantry to land camp, signals coordinated, pursuit relentless. Modern military analysts call it a double envelopment, similar to Cannae 264 years later but inverted. At Cannae, Hannibal Barca used cavalry to encircle Romans. At Himera, Galan used cavalry to destroy the Carthaginian rear and command structure first, then encircle the land force. Different tactics. Same principle. Hit the enemy where they're weak. Deny them time to respond, finish them. The casualty numbers are disputed. Ancient sources exaggerate. Herodotus claimed 300,000 Carthaginians invaded. Modern estimates say 50 to 60,000 if half died. That's 25 to 30,000 casualties. If 2/3 died, that's 35 to 40,000. The mass graves hold evidence for hundreds of dead Greeks, maybe 1,000 buried in the western necropolis. Probably more scattered across the battlefield and eastern necropolis, but Carthaginian bodies weren't given proper burial. They were burned or left for scavengers. The Greeks had no reason to care for enemy dead, so the casualty imbalance was severe. Greeks lost maybe 2,000 to 3,000 killed and wounded. Carthaginians lost tens of thousands. 10 to 1 or 15 to 1 casualty ratio. That's annihilation. The kind of defeat that cripples a nation for decades. Carthage didn't attempt a major Sicilian campaign until 409. 71 years, 2.5 generations. The memory of Himera haunted them. When they returned, they came with overwhelming force, different tactics, siege warfare instead of open battle. They learned, they adapted, they won. If you value documented tactical analysis and archaeological evidence like this, subscribe. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the International Journal of Osteoarchaeology, published February 2020, detailing taphonomic and anthropological studies of the 7 mass graves linked to both Himera battles. And from the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, published 2018, analyzing skeletal stress markers, isotopic data, and trauma patterns in 62 individuals buried near the battlefield. Now back to the information. But why did Himera fade from popular memory while Marathon and Salamis became cultural touchstones? 3 reasons. First, distance. Himera was in Sicily, far from mainland Greece. Not part of the Persian Wars narrative that dominated Athenian history writing. Athens controlled the historical record. They emphasized Marathon and Salamis, victories where Athenians played starring roles. Himera was a Syracusan victory. Different theater, different heroes. Second, mercenaries. The DNA evidence proves foreign fighters were critical to the 480 BC victory. Greek historians hated admitting that citizen soldier ideology was sacred. The hoplite farmer who defended his polis, wage earners undermined that story. So writers minimized or ignored mercenary involvement, focused on Galan and Theron and Greek unity, cleaner narrative, better propaganda. Third, Carthage wasn't Persia. The Persian Wars threatened all of Greece. Xerxes invaded the mainland, burned Athens. The stakes were civilization itself. Carthage only threatened Greek Sicily. Important for Syracuse and Acragas, but not existential for Athens or Sparta. So the battle got relegated to regional history, a footnote in the grand story of Greeks versus barbarians. Modern archaeology changed that. The mass graves excavated from 2007 to 2011 gave physical evidence: bodies, weapons, trauma, genetic data, isotopic analysis. The skeletons don't lie, they show who fought, where they came from, how they died. The researchers published findings in top-tier journals: Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, American Journal of Physical Anthropology, International Journal of Osteoarchaeology, peer-reviewed, replicable. The evidence confirms the basic outline of ancient accounts while correcting key details. Yes, there was a massive battle in 480 BC. Yes, the Greeks won decisively. Yes, the Carthaginian force was annihilated. But no, it wasn't just Greek citizen soldiers. Mercenaries from across the Mediterranean fought and died. And no, the numbers weren't 300,000 versus 50,000. Probably closer to 50,000 Carthaginians versus 20,000 Greeks. Still a significant disadvantage for the Greeks, still an impressive victory, but not the mythic David versus Goliath story ancient writers sold. Closer to a tactical masterpiece where deception, coordination, and ruthless execution compensated for numerical inferiority. The strategy behind the two-front trap came from Jalon. Ancient sources credit him with devising the plan after interrogating the captured messenger. Modern analysts note the sophistication. Jalon understood combined arms warfare, cavalry for mobility and shock, infantry for holding and pushing, deception for gaining surprise. He split his cavalry force, kept most with the main army, sent a detachment to the naval camp, timed the attacks to coincide, used the burning ships as a signal visible from the battlefield. That's staff-level planning, not improvisation. It suggests Jalon had professional military advisors, maybe mercenary commanders with experience from wars across the Mediterranean. The Scythians, Iberians, and other foreign fighters brought tactical knowledge, different ways of fighting, different approaches to cavalry and ambush. They influenced Greek warfare, made it more flexible, more lethal. The hoplite phalanx was formidable but rigid. Add mobile cavalry and combined arms tactics and you get Himera, a battle where the Greeks outthought and outmaneuvered a larger force. That's why the victory mattered. It proved that numbers alone don't win wars. Tactics. Intelligence? Coordination. Those win wars. And in 480 BC, on a coastal plain in Sicily, the Greeks had all three. The aftermath shaped Sicilian and Mediterranean history for the next century. Syracuse became the dominant power in the west. Controlled trade routes, exported grain to Greece and beyond, built the largest navy outside Athens. Jalon and his successors used wealth from victory to hire more mercenaries, expanded territory, fought wars in Italy and North Africa. Syracuse became a military powerhouse, rich, ambitious, aggressive. The other Sicilian Greek cities followed Syracuse's lead or got absorbed. Acragas remained independent under Theron's heirs. Gela, Messana. Catana stayed autonomous but aligned with Syracuse. Carthage focused elsewhere. North African campaigns, Iberian expansion, building commercial networks. They didn't forget Sicily, but they avoided direct confrontation. The treaty held for 70 years. Peace through exhaustion. Carthage couldn't afford another disaster like Himera. Syracuse couldn't push west without triggering another war. So both sides built strength and waited. The balance shifted in 409 when Syracusan politics turned inward. Civil strife, democracy replacing tyranny, military focus weakened. Carthage saw the opening and struck. Hannibal Mago avenged his grandfather, destroyed Himera, defeated Syracuse in subsequent wars. The pendulum swung. By 405 BC, Carthage controlled half of Sicily. The Greeks adapted, hired more mercenaries, built more ships, fought back. The Sicilian Wars continued for another century and a half until Rome entered the picture and crushed both sides. The Roman conquest erased much of the Greek-Carthaginian history from popular memory. Roman historians like Livy focused on the Punic Wars, Hannibal Barca, Scipio Africanus, Cannae, Zama. The earlier Sicilian conflicts became footnotes. Himera disappeared from mainstream history. Greek sources like Herodotus and Diodorus survived but weren't widely read in later centuries. The battle's fame faded. Modern rediscovery started in the early 2000s. Excavations at Himera uncovered the city walls in 2007. The necropolis followed in 2008 during railway construction. Archaeologist Stefano Vassallo and his team found the mass graves, realized they had battlefield casualties, published preliminary findings. Invited geneticists and bioarchaeologists. The interdisciplinary work took years. DNA extraction, isotope analysis, trauma assessment. The results came out in 2022. Media coverage was limited. Academic journals. Archaeology magazines, not mainstream news, but for historians, it was huge. Physical proof of mercenary involvement. Evidence of the battle's location and scale. Confirmation that ancient sources got the broad outlines right, even if the numbers were inflated. The Himera excavations represent one of the best archaeological datasets for ancient warfare. better than most classical Greek battle sites. The bones are well preserved. The context is clear. The analysis is thorough. It's a model for how to study ancient battles. The tactical lessons from Hemera still resonate. Deception works. Intelligence matters. Coordination wins. The same principles apply in modern warfare. Gelon's two-front trap is studied in military academies. Not widely. Not like Cannae or Austerlitz, but it's there. An example of how to use deception and combined arms to overcome numerical disadvantage: the captured messenger, the disguised cavalry, the synchronized attacks, the ruthless pursuit. Every step planned, every move calculated. That's how you win when outnumbered. That's how you turn a defensive war into total victory. And in 480 BC, that's exactly what Gelon did. He destroyed the Carthaginian army, killed their commander, burned their fleet, forced a peace treaty, secured 70 years of Greek dominance in Sicily, all from one perfect ambush, one well-executed plan. One battle that ancient writers claimed changed history, but modern historians forgot until archaeologists dug up the proof in mass graves outside a ruined city on Sicily's northern coast. Himera's ruins sit near the modern town of Termini Imerese. Not much to see. Foundations, wall fragments. The necropolis was reburied after excavation to protect it. The Temple of Victory stands in ruins, built after 480 to commemorate the Greek win. Destroyed in 409 when Hannibal razed the city. Rebuilt as Thermae. Survived until medieval times. Abandoned. Forgotten. The site was identified in the 19th century. Limited excavations in the 20th. Major work in the 21st. Now it's protected. Part of Sicily's archaeological heritage. Tourists visit, but not many. It's off the main routes. Not Agrigento, not Syracuse, not Taormina, just ruins in a field near the coast. But beneath that field lie 10,000 burials, mass graves with soldiers from 2 battles, skeletons with arrowheads and spear blades, horses buried with bronze rings still in their mouths. Physical evidence of one of ancient history's most complete victories. A battle where Greeks and mercenaries defeated Carthage. A trap so perfect that tens of thousands died and only one ship survived to tell Carthage the news. A victory that shaped the Mediterranean for decades. A story that faded from memory until archaeologists brought it back with DNA evidence and isotope analysis and trauma patterns in ancient bone. The numbers don't lie. 50 to 60,000 Carthaginians invaded, 20,000 Greeks defended. The Greeks won, casualty ratio 10 to 1 or worse. Carthaginian fleet destroyed, commander killed, army annihilated, peace imposed. 70 years of Greek dominance. Those are the facts. Documented in ancient sources, confirmed by archaeology, published in peer-reviewed journals. The two-front trap worked, the deception succeeded, the coordination held. The pursuit finished the job. And in autumn 480 BC, on a coastal plain outside Himera, the Greeks proved that tactics and intelligence and ruthless execution beat raw numbers every time. That's the lesson. That's the truth. That's what the mass graves and genetic data and isotopic analysis and ancient accounts all tell us. Himera was one of history's most perfect ambushes. A tactical masterpiece. A victory so complete it took Carthage 70 years to recover. And the only reason we forgot about it is because the winners wanted to hide the mercenaries, and the losers stopped writing history, and the historians who came later cared more about Athens and Sparta and Marathon and Thermopylae. But the bones remember. The DNA remembers. The arrowheads embedded in ribs and spear blades lodged in chest cavities remember. Himera happened. 20,000 destroyed 50,000. 2 camps attacked simultaneously. One commander killed at a sacrificial altar. One fleet burned on the beach. One army broken and slaughtered on a coastal plain. One victory that changed the Mediterranean. One battle that deserves to be remembered. Now you know. In 2008, just during railway construction between Palermo and Messina, workers hit bone. Lots of bone. Archaeologists arrived, found mass graves. Males aged 18 to 50. Violent trauma. Weapons. The excavation expanded. 16 mass graves. 7 linked to battles. Thousands of individuals. The Western Necropolis became one of the largest battlefield burial sites in classical archaeology. The bones were cleaned, catalogued, analyzed. Anthropologists measured skeletal stress markers, signs of carrying heavy shields, hernias, joint degeneration, healed fractures. These were soldiers, professional fighters. The trauma patterns showed combat deaths, blade cuts, penetrating wounds, blunt force trauma. One man with a spearhead still in his ribs, another with sword cuts to the skull, another with an arrowhead in the chest cavity. Cause of death obvious. The burial practices varied. Some mass graves had bodies laid carefully. Others showed hasty disposal, overlapping corpses, incomplete articulation, high skeleton density. The 480 BC graves showed more care, victors burying their dead. The 409 graves showed chaos, defeated city burying what it could before evacuation. The archaeological context matched the historical accounts. The western necropolis sat near where the main fighting occurred. Bodies were buried close to where they fell. Heavy, difficult to move, quick disposal necessary, disease, decomposition, practical concerns after battle. The Greeks won in 480. Had time, built tombs, included grave goods for some, respected the dead. In 409 they lost, fled the city, and left bodies behind. Carthaginians probably burned or desecrated them. The contrast shows in the graves. The horse burials are rare. 18 found near the soldier graves, dated to early 5th century BC, bronze rings and mouths, harness fittings, buried with care. Horses were valuable, military assets. The presence of horse burials supports Diodorus, account of cavalry playing a critical role. Gelon's horsemen delivered victory. Some died in the fighting, were buried with honor near their human comrades. Greek culture valued horses. Cavalry was elite, wealthy citizens, sons of aristocrats, mercenary officers. The horses found at Himera represent the cream of Gelon's cavalry force, the ones who rode into the naval camp, killed Hamilcar, burned the ships, turned the battle. Their burial near the necropolis shows respect, recognition. These horses and riders changed history. The Greeks remembered, buried them properly. 2,500 years later, archaeologists found them, confirmed the ancient accounts, proved the cavalry stratagem was real. The horses died. The tactic worked. The battle was won, and the evidence sits in museum storage in Palermo. Bronze rings, bone fragments, physical proof of one perfect ambush that destroyed an empire's army. The genetic revelations stunned researchers. David Reich, geneticist at Harvard, led the DNA analysis. Alyssa Mitnick, Harvard researcher, called the genetic diversity unprecedented for classical history. Individuals from mass graves showed ancestry from Central Asia, the Caucasus. Central Europe, the Baltic, not Greek, not local Sicilian, foreign. The isotope analysis confirmed it. Strontium ratios in tooth enamel indicated childhood far from Sicily. Oxygen isotopes supported distant origins. These men grew up hundreds or thousands of kilometers away, traveled to Sicily as adults, fought in 480, died on the battlefield, were buried with Greek soldiers in mass graves. The DNA doesn't lie. About 1/3 of the 480 BC force was foreign mercenaries. Greek historians never mentioned them. Herodotus and Diodorus attributed victory to Greek courage and leadership, ignored the hired muscle. The genetic data forces a rewrite. Gelon didn't win with just Syracusan citizens and Acragantine allies. He hired fighters from across the known world, Scythians from the steppes, warriors from the Caucasus, troops from Central Europe, maybe Celts, maybe Thracians. Definitely not Greek. They came for silver, fought for pay, died in Sicily, got anonymous burials, and for 2,500 years, nobody knew they existed. Now we do. The revelation changes how we understand Greek warfare. Mercenaries were critical, not peripheral. Core components of Sicilian Greek armies, Syracuse, Acragas, and other cities hired foreign professionals to augment citizen militias, used wealth to buy military advantage. That's how Gelon fielded 20,000 troops. That's how he matched a Carthaginian invasion force 2 or 3 times larger. That's how he won. Not just Greek unity, not just tactical genius, foreign mercenaries fighting for silver. The truth is messier than the myth, and the DNA proves it. The 409 BC graves told a different story. Genetic homogeneity, mostly local Sicilian ancestry, fewer foreign mercenaries. 3/4 of the force was local compared to 1/3 in 480. Why? Syracuse didn't send help. Himera fought alone, couldn't afford large-scale mercenary recruitment, defended with citizens and local allies, lost. The genetic evidence matches the historical accounts. Syracuse abandoned Himera. The city's garrison fought to the last. Hannibal Mago's army overwhelmed them. The survivors fled. Many were executed. 3,000 prisoners sacrificed where Hamilcar died. Ritual revenge. The mass graves from 409 show the carnage. Bodies piled quickly. Less care than 480. Defeated defenders. No time, no resources. The Carthaginians razed the city, burned the temples, erased Himera from the map. The genetic data shows who paid the price. Local Sicilians, Greeks born on the island, men who couldn't leave, didn't have the money for mercenaries, fought anyway, died anyway, were buried in the same necropolis as their victorious ancestors. 2 battles, 2 armies, 2 outcomes, all visible in the DNA. The archaeological work continues. more graves to excavate, more bones to analyze. The necropolis holds secrets. Researchers want more genetic samples, broader geographic coverage, better understanding of where the mercenaries came from, trade routes, migration patterns, military recruitment networks. The data will come. Slowly, carefully. This is how science works. Dig, analyze, publish, repeat. Stefano Vassallo's team has published dozens of papers: anthropology, archaeology, genetics, isotope chemistry. Each study adds detail, clarifies the picture, confirms or challenges ancient accounts. The work is painstaking, expensive, time-consuming, but it's worth it, because every bone tells a story. Every DNA sample reveals ancestry. Every isotope signature marks origin. And together they reconstruct the Battle of Himera, not from propaganda, not from myth, from physical evidence, peer-reviewed, replicable, factual. That's what we value. That's what this script delivers. Truth backed by science and ancient sources cross-checked against archaeological reality. Himera happened. The two-front trap worked. 20,000 Greeks destroyed 50,000 Carthaginians. The mercenaries fought. The cavalry charged. The fleet burned. The commander died. The army broke. The peace lasted 70 years. Those are the facts. Documented. Confirmed. Real. The Himera excavations recovered over 10,000 burials from the western necropolis. Most were individual graves. Standard practice. Families burying their dead. But 16 graves held multiple individuals. 7 linked to the battles. The rest were family tombs. Plague victims. Natural disasters. The battlefield burials stand out. All males. Combat age. Trauma patterns. Weapons. The mass graves are crowded. Skeleton density high. Bodies overlap. Some graves hold 3 to 5 individuals. Others hold 20 or 30. One grave might hold 50. Hard to count. Overlapping remains. Incomplete skeletons. The excavation requires precision. Map each bone. Record position. Document trauma. Collect samples. The work took years. The team included archaeologists, anthropologists, conservators, architects, geneticists, isotope specialists, interdisciplinary collaboration. The results speak for themselves. The graves are real. The trauma is real. The DNA is real. The battle happened. Himera was the killing ground. The Western Plain was the battlefield. The Greeks won. The Carthaginians died. The graves hold the evidence, and until 2008, nobody knew they were there. Hidden under 3 meters of sediment, protected by compact soil, preserved for 2,500 years, waiting for a railway project to disturb them, waiting for archaeologists to recognize what they found, waiting for scientists to extract DNA and measure isotopes and prove that ancient accounts, however exaggerated, were fundamentally true. That's the power of archaeology. Turn myth into fact, turn legend into history, turn story into science. The final revelation sits in a laboratory in Palermo, boxes of bone fragments, teeth, vertebrae, ribs, femurs, skulls, cataloged, stored, analyzed, published, but not finished. More work remains, more questions to answer. How many foreign mercenaries fought? Where exactly did they come from? What routes brought them to Sicily? How did Yelon recruit them? How much did he pay? What happened to survivors? Did any return home? Or did they stay in Sicily? Start families. Blend into the population. The DNA can answer some questions. Isotopes can answer others. But some answers are lost. Burned with Carthaginian ships. Buried in unmarked graves. Forgotten when ancient writers chose to ignore mercenaries and focus on Greek heroism. The gaps frustrate. But what we have is enough. Enough to reconstruct the battle. Enough to understand the tactics. Enough to appreciate the victory. Enough to know that Himera was real. That 20,000 Greeks and mercenaries destroyed 50,000 Carthaginians in a two-front trap, executed with precision and ruthlessness. That Gelon's cavalry killed Hamilcar at a sacrificial altar and burned the Carthaginian fleet and signaled the main attack, and encircled the enemy army and pursued the survivors until the slaughter ended. That the victory secured 70 years of peace, that the price was thousands dead and buried in mass graves outside a ruined city. That the truth was hidden for 25 centuries until archaeologists dug it up and geneticists sequenced it and isotope specialists confirmed it and historians synthesized it into the story you just heard, the story of Himera. The battle that destroyed an empire, the trap that changed the Mediterranean, the victory that history forgot until science brought it back. In 2011, the excavations at Himera concluded. The railway was built. The necropolis was reburied, protection measures installed. The site is monitored, guarded, preserved. Someday, maybe, more excavations, more discoveries, more answers. But for now, the work is done, published, available. The mass graves are documented. The DNA is sequenced, the isotopes are measured, the trauma is cataloged, the story is told. Hemera lives again, not in myth. In fact, 20,000 Greeks, 50,000 Carthaginians. Autumn 480 BC, northern coast of Sicily, two-front trap, cavalry to the naval camp, infantry to the land camp, Hamilcar killed, fleet burned, army destroyed. Carthage defeated, peace imposed, Mediterranean changed. Victory complete, evidence buried, forgotten, rediscovered, analyzed, confirmed, and now you know. The most perfect ambush in ancient history, the two-front trap that annihilated an empire, the battle that proved tactics beat numbers, the victory that mercenaries won, but historians erased, the truth that DNA brought back. Hemera, 480 BC, documented, factual, real,